Hi, everybody, and welcome again to Consciousness Rising Zimbabwe and Beyond. My name is Tanya Norris, and I'll be your host today. And as you know, this is a platform where we bring to you people that are making a difference in their communities. And also we cover some consciousness topics, fringe topics as well. Today I have with me a very wonderful, young, creative, innovative thought leader. And we're going to be talking about African history, the truth of African history, and also some of the projects that she's working on, which are multiple. So before I go into that, I'd just like to introduce to you Eneritha Mufara. Hi, can I call you Rita?
Yes, that's fine.
Anyway, thank you, Rita, for joining us and welcome. And I think it's going to be quite an informative discussion today, conversation. So
thank you so much, Tanya, for having me.
No, I'm just going to touch on the bio because it is vast. Okay, so you run a psychological support project called the Ruby Pearl Project, which is helping and engaging young adults to deal with psychosocial and social problems. Have I said that correctly?
Yes, psychological and social problems.
Psychological.
Yes, psychosocial problems.
Okay. She's the founder of AfriTru, which is an initiative aimed at educating, promoting, and restoring African pride, dignity, and identity in Africans through history using academia, media, and digital space. She's the creator of the Thought Sessions, which is an urban cultural event platform. She holds a youth development portfolio with Grace, GRACE Foundation, founded by Doris Mufara. She's also the creator and host of Talk Thoughts. And just for fun, she's also a DJ and sound engineer, a poetry writer. She makes some amazing videos that I've seen as well, and I'm going to put all of those links at the bottom. So, wow. And I just need to tell everybody that Rita is, how old are you? 28? 29?
26.
26. Can you believe that? Wow. Wow. So that is, very gifted. Very gifted. So anyway.
Thank you so much.
So now Rita and I are friends. We met because I'm actually a member of her AfriTru group. And it's quite a intense and it's quite a heated and it's a real thing, isn't it, Rita? We can have some real
it is
on that group, but it's fun. And so what I wanted to maybe touch on today, because the topics are vast, but you know, now we're in 2020, we're living in an age of truth. And we see that unfolding, say, on the political stage. You know, all of these political parties are accusing each other of being conspiratorial. And so we're getting to a stage where nobody really knows what the truth is. We look at our agricultural systems, you know, and I think it's becoming pretty evident that these corporates are sort of hijacking and taking control of the seed. You know, this is the truth. These are truths that are coming out. The banking system has kind of been put in place to keep us all indebted for the rest of our lives and enslaved for the rest of our lives. And the medical system, you know, this is the one that's big on the stage at the moment, and nobody's agreeing on what it is. And this is really driving people to really do some research and look into, you know, what is it all about? The control, the vaccines, you know, all of those things. But anyway, for today, what I really want to talk about is the control of the educational system that we've been living under for probably hundreds of years. And it's one thing about history. And we all know that history is written by the victors. Yes, we know that. However, you know, I think I'm not a historian myself, but I am a researcher. So whenever I need to research something, it will always take me back into, you know, right the way back through history. And yes, so what has really come to my attention lately are all the mistruths that certainly my generation, previous generations, and I think even to this day, the things that these children and young people are learning in academia and even at schools is really, really far from the truth, especially when it comes to Africa.
Yeah.
I mean, as far as I knew,
that is very precise.
Exactly. And you know what, Rita, when I went, sorry, I'm talking too much here, but I need to get it all out. So when I went to school, you know, and even my children, you know, it was the idea that, oh, yes, well, you know, Africa was a dark continent. And the people there were very primitive. And then the colonials came and they, all the black people sold them each other into slavery. And they were primitive, and you know what I mean? So you kind of believe that. It's only when you actually look deeper, when you realize that that wasn't the truth at all. They had quite advanced systems going on in Africa way before colonization, going all the way back to maybe 4,000 years ago.
Yeah.
You know, with organized societal systems, trade systems. So they were actually pretty advanced. And I'm not talking now about Egypt. I'm not just talking about North Africa, you know, everybody wants to focus on Egypt. I'm talking about West Africa, even sub-Saharan Africa. So there you are, I had my little rant. So, so the question that I need to ask you, how do we change that, you know? I mean, that's a big thing.
Well, the truth is, what is already there will always affect us. That's why you find that even with AfriTru, we look into the past. We look into our history and see what is it like way before colonization and racism, and slavery and stuff like that. What is it that was happening? How were we developing? What stage were we at when these colonizers then decided to come and scramble and petition Africa? And then we bring that into that era then of colonization and all that stuff, and then post. And then when you look at all that, you realize that there is so much that has been omitted and so much propaganda that has been spread when it comes to the narrative of African people. Academics will always be there. It was introduced in a more formal system, especially after colonization, but we're already getting educated way before. Oral, or even though it was done in an oral way, it was still education. Information moves in various ways. There is speech, there is visual, there is written communication. And you find that in Africa, we did a lot of oral communication. That was still educative in its own right. So now, fast forward to the 21st century. We will use the things that we have that people are attached to. It is no lie that there are addictions. A lot of us are addicted to TV. A lot of us are addicted to social media. A lot of us are addicted to tech stuff, technological inventions that we see through applications, mobile applications and stuff like that. We will use that. We are an interactive people, so no problem. We will still have our matari, Dari in Shona, our meetings, our caucus meetings, our events, so that we educate our children and even ourselves on the things that were for now, for the future. That is how we are going to educate our children. Debunk, research. I always encourage people to get into social, into humanities subjects, because I feel like those help people into getting into society. From society, you get everything else. You'll get the scientists, you'll get the geologists, you'll get all those people, but they come from society. So we need to study society. When we study society, we get to understand the past traditions and the cultures and where we are now. How and when and where did they evolve? And that helps us then in this day and age to figure out what is it then that we are going to adopt, that we're going to carry on with this bloodline, with this timeline, so that we get to a point where we do not lose our identity. Because in our history, there is identity.
That's
and
right.
it's unfortunate now that because of westernization, globalization and all that, we have lost a lot of African identity. We are trying to emanate and take on identities that are not ours. At the end of the day, there is always going to be good and there's always going to be bad in all of our histories. There is always good and bad in every tradition. There is always good and bad in every culture, whether it's Western or it's African. But at the end of the day, now because we have the power of choice, and now because we're a little bit more woke, I guess, you now can then say, you know what, I'm going to choose to take this path of knowledge, to take this path of research, and not only for myself, but for my kids and my future generations, for my grandchildren and whoever is going to come. Because like you said earlier on, it is true. The things that we are taught in school are whitewashed. They are diluted. They are manufactured truths, where because there's an agenda there. That is what you're taught.
Yes.
At the end of the day, even our government, like I always say to my mom, there are certain systems that were never African that we are now using anyway. Even the government system, we're not a democratic people, but we're using systems that are foreign, and that's how we are deep plunged in the problems that we have today. However, like I said, not everything is bad in everything, in every system, in every culture, in every tradition. But you have the choice then to make and say, we are going to take the positive stuff. We are going to take the good stuff, the progressive stuff, the innovative, the creative stuff, and adopt that and evolve that so that we grow as a community, as a society, and so that our children don't lose the identity that which they have. And you do find this especially in children that are in the diaspora. We've had conversations with sisters, friends that are in the America, in Europe, and you find that even in their educational systems, they do not necessarily have Black history education. You have a dedicated month to Black what they call Black History Month in America, and it's a shallow narrative.
I watched it. It's very Americanized. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very Americanized, very shallow, very like, okay, so where is the substance? When our children watch this, do they feel the pride that they're supposed to feel for the color of their skin? For their heritage, for where they come from? Because like you said earlier, as a dark continent, racial sisters and brothers treat us. No, let me just say this. Let me put this side note. Every race has a tinge of racism. Whether you're Black, whether you're white, whether you're Chinese, Asian, whether you're what, there is racism in every one of those. So it's not just racism between white people and Black people, but it's a human issue at the end of the day. Absolutely. But these are things that are taught. These are things that are taught to us through the systems that have already been created. And we need to dismantle that. We need to say, you know what? We take ownership of who we are as African people. And then from that, realize what is it that we each have in our communities as friends, as brothers and sisters, in the spirit of Ubuntu, in the spirit of respectability, in the spirit of love and compassion. What is it that we have amongst ourselves that we can use together to better our communities in our societies? And that is the basis of how we can re-educate ourselves and our children.
And I agree with you, but what you're talking about is very grassroots. It begins, like you say, in society, in the home. You know, it is the elders passing down information, teaching their children. And I think that is fine, but I also feel like that might take quite a long time. So for me, it is a case of, yeah, okay, we all need to be doing that. I'm sure we do. A lot of people do that anyway. But we also need to call out the institutions. This is something also that needs to be rectified within the history books.
True. And that is why, if you realize that through AfriTru, I'll refer to AfriTru
Yeah.
often because it's the initiative that is carrying a lot of the African agenda.
Yeah.
So you find that when you look at AfriTru, we have and the group, you're part of our group. We're there to research, discuss, put together papers and literature and books, whatever it is, that is from an African perspective and an African narrative, and then say, you know what, this is the blueprint. Then we can then go and challenge the systems by already teaching ourselves, because what we're doing is also unlearning and relearning. There is no way we're going to go teach somebody something that we don't know. There is no way we're going to challenge systems if we don't even know the systems, or we don't know what we want to use to challenge those systems. And so we need to learn and teach each other. That's why I said interaction between us in societies. And when I say society, it's not restricted to just the family unit, but it is also the secondary society, where you have schools, churches, community services, and all that stuff. That is all secondary. That is all part of society. So those are the things, those are all the places that we need to target. So if we do come up with these blueprints, if we do come up with these, our point of combat, I guess, then we're able to change the system. Slowly but surely, we are bringing in topics, even from the things that we see that are happening around us, and saying, okay, this is what's happening. Amongst us, what is it that we think we can do about this? And then when we discuss among ourselves these topics, we then decide, okay, so what is our call to action? And then work on that call to action. And I completely agree with you. We need to challenge the system, not even the systems from out there, our own African systems. We are being led by African leaders. At the end of the day, they may be little puppets to some people, they may be whatever they are, but because we're being led by African leaders, we need to tap into their African spirit and say, hey, you're an African and we're African, and you know this system does not work for us, and this is what we need to do. It needs to come from an African perspective, like I said. It needs to come from us, the African people, and challenge our in the systems, in the education system, in the governance system, everything. We appoint them. They are government chosen by the people. But we need to recognize that we are the people who put them there. And they need to interact with us. It's not always about dark forces. And it's also not always about trying to challenge power and all that stuff. It's not that. But it's crying out for real change, for systematic change in our African societies.
Yes, I agree with you there, but I still feel this is going to take a long time. And I'd also, the other thing you're saying, that surely there is quite a large body of information. I mean, I'm sort of fairly active on YouTube, and I belong to channels all over Africa. You know, they do seem to have quite a lot of information about the pre-colonial history. Because, you know, and why do I bring this up as something important? Is that it isn't just Africans here in Africa, but there's a lot in the diaspora, you know. And I think if they had just to know what their true history was, could be an extremely empowering thing. You understand?
You know what, Tanya? I believe that.
And
yes,
so
I believe that the creator.
If we collect all of this body of information about the history, go to bloody Cambridge or the Smithsonian Society and say, hey, cut it out, you know, and rethink this. And I'm sure that there are enough academics, historians, educators in Africa that can say, hey, okay, this is the whole body. I believe it already exists, Ritah. And then go to these institutions and say, hey, you know, sort it out. I think that as maybe as a global approach. I know you're talking about the sort of social and grassroots approach to it. So yeah, that's me. I like to go for the big guns. I like to go for the big guys. And I think it's something that can work. It's in tandem. It's never one thing.
Yeah.
I mean, even in history,
Yes.
it's never one thing. So
Yeah.
Anyway, I just think that. So if anybody out there is in academia, is a historian, is willing to do that, we can maybe work towards putting some kind of a body together. And then just go straight to the top of the pile and say, hey, what are you talking about?
Yeah, I believe in the power of collaboration and the power of interaction. I feel like we already, like you said, even in the diaspora, there are people who are woke to this. There are people who are working towards the same agenda, like we're talking about right now.
That's right.
But it's now about saying, hey, let's put our heads together and join hands so that we push forward this agenda. At the end of the day, because we are talking about Africa and the globe, it's not a one country thing. It's not a one society thing. It's not a one person thing. It's about all of us coming together and saying, hey, what is the next step that we take so that we do reach the globe, like you're saying? And I do believe right now that a lot of African people are becoming a little bit more inquisitive about themselves, inquisitive about their cultures, inquisitive about where they come from. Even those that were born out of Africa and don't know exactly about it, they are waking up to that realization that no, I am an African, and so I need to know about Africa. And they are getting to a point where they're reaching out and also educating themselves and researching. And so we need to come together. We all need to come together. That's why we're working on doing creating a system called Relate Pal, where we're saying Africans in Africa and Africans in the diaspora, let's come together. If it means that we need to learn languages so that we're able to communicate with each other well, if it means that we need to bring resources together, if you want to come to Africa, if we want to come where you are so that we just check out what the culture it is like, let's do that so that we get to a point where we actually collaborate and then work towards this. At the end of the day, like, I feel like everything may seem like it's slow, but everything has a time. There, you are in a time right now. We are in a time right now. I don't believe that this conversation that we are having is coincidental. It was meant to be. It was meant to happen on the date of 20 August, from 20 minutes to 1 till 8. Right now it's 18 past 1. It was meant to be. And so what is meant to be will be. Even if you look at how Africans think and even the Ubuntu philosophy and how we've interacted, what is meant to be will be. That is what I believe at the end of the day. So because we will, and because this is sparked within us, we wouldn't be having this conversation if it was not meant to be. Because we are already in this conversation, it means traction is being made in its own sense. It means that we are already working. You and I are working on educating and debunking these issues with everybody. Right. So it's a step. It is a step in the right direction to address global people. You don't know who's going to be listening to this episode, Tanya. Okay. You don't know who's going to click on Consciousness Rising and say, hey, I'm interested in this conversation. You don't know who's going to do that. No. I don't know who's going to be listening to Talk Thoughts.
That's right.
And that is global at the end of the day. So it starts there. It may look as if it's grassroots, but I see the importance in grassroots. I see the importance in this kind of thing in someone out there, because we do need to all huddle together anyway at the end of the day. Like I said, it's not a one country thing, it's not a one man thing, it's not a one society thing, it's all of us.
So that I think, but also all change at the end of the day really comes from grassroots. It's got to come from the people. It has to come from the people and the numbers and the collaborations. And as you say, then we can aim higher. But another thing I must tell you is that I honestly think we're living in an age of acceleration, and we have been. So this is like the time, as you say, everything in life is timing. And this is what I think 2020 has been about, not just for all the issues that we see unfolding, you know, in front of our faces on the news and all of that, but for these things as well. You know, truth about history. And hopefully a lot of more people are doing more research and coming to these realizations themselves. So anyway, I think,
you know, I was looking at the COVID-19 issue. Sorry, just to say something. I was looking at the COVID-19 lockdown issue. And I was thinking, if it hadn't happened, I don't know if we were going to have this kind of interactions, because we were so stuck up in our day jobs and all these other things, you know, that buzz all around us. We wouldn't have had time to meditate. We wouldn't have had time to gather our spirits, gather our minds, you know, and, you know, take a step back. We wouldn't have all these, you know, even the energies that we are channeling to certain things, certain topics, from Zimbabwean Lives Matter to Black Lives Matter to even our own societal issues, like what we're doing with AfriTru, like what you're doing with Consciousness Rising. Today is a Thursday. It could be at work. It could be in office.
Right.
You know, so I do take value in 2020. You know, it's unfortunate for a lot of people who are just chilling and not realizing the potential that they have in utilizing this particular time. And so maybe that's why we have this conversation, so that we're spark that, you know, that onus in people, that spirit in people to say, okay, fine, let's look into this. Let's look into ourselves as society. And now in 2020, via Hopo Chingono, via ourselves, via media, via TV, there's a lot of rot that's coming out.
Yeah, that's it. Exposure. That's what I'm saying.
So
We're living in an age of disclosure, of exposure, and truth. Okay, and as I said, there are many truths, but still, at least we have an option to think about and choose our truth, and not be brainwashed into what is the truth. Right.
Yes.
So, so Ritah, what I'm going to do on this particular topic on the AfriTru, I'm going to put all the links at the bottom underneath this video. So if anybody's interested in joining any of these groups, or they can contribute something to us, you know, to help you with that movement, then all the information will be there. Before we close up, I just want to ask you, so you've already put in place some of these, how can I say, you're like a thought leader, you're a way shower, a change maker. And you already have these projects in place, which is like the Ruby Pearl, the AfriTru, the Thought Tribe. Just tell us quickly, we've spoken quite a lot about AfriTru. Tell us about your the Ruby Pearl project.
All right, so the Ruby Pearl is a psychosocial support unit or support program. What we're doing is we are trying to bring in young adults and help them and have these conversations, and also help them psychologically when it comes to things that affect us, especially from a societal perspective. It's more on the mental health side of things, because we are affected by economies. We are affected by what's happening on a day-to-day basis in our societies. So you'll have somebody who has ADHD or OCD, and they have problems at work and they don't even know what's going on. Economies are going upside down, and some things don't feel like they're moving in the direction that they want them to move. They have issues in relationships, they are depressed, they have all that stuff. It's all societal. So we're saying, you know, we need to deal with the social and psychological issues through interaction. And we do that through the use of expressionism. Expressionism is a creative form, a creative art form, painting and poetry, but we are particularly using the modernized way of expressionism, where we're saying even dancing, even singing, even instrument playing, even whatever creative thing, even if you're an inventor, come through and work on a project. Let's start working on a project in your space, in your mind, and allow that to express how you feel. Express what your spirit is failing to say, you know, to the next to the normal people around you, but to come and hang out with us. Come hang out with us. You realize that no, you're not alone. It's a bunch of us who have crazy minds and crazy spirits. But however, not only are we doing that through expressionism, but we're also going to be supporting them from a spiritual perspective. So why I say that is I believe that spiritual health is equals to mental health and it's equals to physical health. So if one of those things is down, the rest of them suffer. If your physical health is bad, your mental health and your spiritual health are going to suffer, because you're going to start questioning about, you know, your spiritual existence. You're going to start questioning, am I crazy? What's wrong with me? You know, you get into depression, you get into anxiety, you get into sadness. If you are sick, or if you are unwell, rather, I don't like using the word sick, but if you're unwell mentally, you start deteriorating. When I wasn't feeling well mentally, I got into a space where I was like really angry, bitter, and depressed because of certain events in my life just a couple of years ago. I actually saw it in my skin. I saw it in the way that I looked. I saw it in the way that my body changed, you know, and I became physically sick as well. I became physically sick, and I also became spiritually sick because I was questioning a lot of things. I was. And so I feel like those three components, they work with each other. They have to be well. And that's why we really target the spiritual person. The spiritual person is the one that expresses. That's why we use expressionism. So that's the work of Ruby Pearl, mainly targeting young adults, the ones that are in the brunt and the ones that are, you know, trying to make things work in this generation, in this time. So yeah, that's the work of Ruby Pearl.
Well, that's fabulous as well. Do you have a location where you meet at? Do you meet online? I mean, obviously with COVID, it's been a bit different.
Yeah.
Have you got a place where people meet?
So what we've been doing with Ruby Pearl was an event-based initiative. So we would have events, you know, like certain days and dates where we'll say we're meeting at this place at this time for so long. Come, let's do this. Come, let's talk. Come, let's express ourselves. But like you said, because of COVID-19, it has become somewhat difficult for all of us to meet. However, you find that we have joined forces, or rather we're involved. I'm personally involved in a couple of initiatives that have to do with psychological issues and educating ourselves in that. We are working on a concept where we will take everything online. We have created a group for the Ruby Pearl project where we've said, you know what, you can come in the group and you can use that platform to express yourself. So if you're a poet, if you're a painter or whatever, and you feel like you want to do something, you can share in the group. And we do have support. We do have like psychiatrists and spiritual help that is available if you ask for it in the group. We are not going to push ourselves onto people because we don't want to smother people, but we want to give people the opportunity to express themselves without having to feel the pressures of life and the pressure of feeling, these guys are wanting something from me all the time. Nah. We're not trying to do that. We are looking into also acquiring our own space, a permanent space. And that's why we are calling out even to people who want to be friends of Ruby Pearl and say, come and help us. If you want to donate if you want to donate, if you want to partner, if you want to invest in Ruby Pearl, so that we get to a point where we actually have our own place in our own space to host our healing sessions, to host meditations, to host to build our pods, because we've got this little concept of our, we're saying like we've got our pods. If you feel like you want to run away from the rest of the world for the night or for the day, you can come into your little pod and, you know, be by yourself for a little bit of time. We will have resources in there. If you just want to get into a space of serenity, we want that kind of space. We want to create that kind of space for ourselves. So that is where we are right now. Everything is a little bit more online than it was physically.
Well, let's just see. I see things are being lightened up a little bit. So maybe before the end of the year. I think it's always good to have a deadline vision in your head. You know, like before the end of the year, maybe that could manifest for us. And so it isn't just about people coming together, obviously, to meditate and run away or whatever. It's also a place where people can be interactive with each other, meet like-minded people.
Yes.
Yeah, all of those things. Yeah. So
yeah, precisely.
Okay, so then I'm just going to give a shout out to anybody who's watching this, and even if you don't have those kind of resources to help, but maybe you know somebody who does, who would be interested in some kind of investing time, energy, expertise into these projects, and then please do that. Please get hold of Ritah and start, let's create a movement and start getting involved. And as you say, cooperation is what's going to create the change at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So
that is very true.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you so much for that. Yeah.
And we've been going for quite a while. So I'm sure that we'll get you back, Ritah, also just with some updates of how it's going. Okay, because you're very active. Let me just tell you, everyone, that Ritah is extremely active. We're getting things every day, 3 times a day, you know, of either thought-provoking or think about this or do that or look at this. So, yeah, I think you're a fabulous stream of information and education. So well done for that. And
thank you.
Keep up your good work. And like I said, we'll do a catch up, see where we're up to, maybe in a month or 2.
Oh, thank you so much, Tanya. Thank you for the opportunity. I speak peace and blessings upon your movement, Consciousness Rising. You guys are doing an amazing job of, you know, bringing to light the things that are happening in our societies and the movements that are there and game changers in our societies. So thank you so much, Tanya. You are also a game changer yourself. You're also doing an amazing job yourself. So thank you so much, Consciousness Rising. Thank you. And peace, love, and light to you.
Thank you, darling. And everybody, all of Ritah's information will be underneath in this video. So please like it, share it, let's help. It's really through our community, and you are the community. Everybody out there is a game changer if they want to be a game changer. So maybe just decide that you do. Just share the information. You never know who it resonates with, who is going to be the person that can help. And if you do that, we'll be forever grateful. And have a good week, everyone, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye. Bye, Ritah.
Bye, Tanya. Thank you so much.
Okay.